Hey chat. Sorry for neglecting you guys. There was someone else in my life for those few moments. I hope you guys understand. I hope it was fun. I had a lot of fun with that, man. So I don't know. I wasn't entirely sure how it was gonna go. I had no reason to expect it wouldn't go well, but I don't know. It's something I haven't talked to Destiny before. It was really fun to talk to him. So it happen more often? Well, I think both he and I have the same issue here, right? Which is find a reason. So I'm Filthy, do Twitch gaming all the time, strategy gaming mostly. That's what I've been doing for full time for I think 7 years now or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a master's in social psychology. I left my PhD program to pursue streaming full time. So I was in there with that. I have a couple publications for that kind of thing, but I was in there for social psychology and human sexuality and statistics.
Mm-hmm.
So did a lot of work with kink communities and found a lot of the stuff that showed up there really interesting to kind of the application in my life. So I thought that might be a good point to start on. And I'm a fairly regular viewer of your content, so I'm kind of a little bit up to date with some of the things that have been going on with like your content. So
okay,
I think that makes me a degenerate of some sort.
possibly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. All right. So I don't know you at all, and you don't know me at all. So I'm sure this will be super easy to jump right into just conversations about this. But
Sure.
maybe I'll start with kind of for me. So getting into the university program I was in, some of the work I initially started doing was I came in for a different set of work, but then I kind of took an evolutionary psychology class and started working with this professor who also ran the NIU BDSM research team, which is the college I was at, NIU. And as part of that, kind of joined that team. And as part of that, kind of got a lot of exposure to, we did field work in kink communities and going to some of these events and meeting some of these people. And this was kind of relatively new to my experience of that. And for me, it was really kind of mind opening. It was kind of a big, one of these like head explodes kind of moments, right?
Okay.
Where for me, I kind of have been raised with the idea that an egalitarian, monogamous, paired relationship was kind of the way relationships were done.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met these people who, by and large, were having successful, happy, fulfilling relationships. And none of those components had to be there for that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was kind of a big internalized message of, hey, you can build this shit. You build everything else in your life. You make these decisions everywhere else in your life. But I didn't think to kind of question the makeup of a relationship.
Sure.
And that was really eye-opening for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of curious for you. You're pretty open with your relationship stuff, right? So if I run into any territory, you're just like, hey, I don't want to answer questions about that.
No, you're fine. I'm completely open. Yeah, whatever you want to chat about.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But seriously, like that. Even if you say that, you can come back on that later if there's something. But anyways, so for what was you? When did poly become something that you were even aware of as an option? Like, how did that enter your mind?
I'm just going to answer your questions like straightforward, and then if you need more backstory, you can always tell me, basically. I had no idea that poly was actually, I'd heard the term before, but I didn't really know that people did it or know much about it until I met my current girlfriend, and she told me that she was polyamorous. And then I thought about it a little more. I was like, oh, sounds cool.
You said you met your current girlfriend in the sense of you were already dating when that came up, or came up when you like met her before you started dating?
No, I met her before I was dating her. I met her and I chatted with her and I found out that she was polyamorous, and then that caused me to more seriously investigate it.
Okay. And when you say investigate it, besides the kind of fun pun, I'm sure with that, but what did you actually what did you do to kind of like say, hey, is this going to be something that's worthwhile for me or useful to me, or how does this work, or like how did you go into that?
I just I thought about it and it sounded awesome. The biggest problem that I have with my relationships is that I don't usually have very much time. I spend a lot of time working. And so the idea that if I'm dating somebody, if they feel like they're not getting something that they need, some level of emotional support or somebody to do enough activities with or whatever, that they can like have other people in their life that they can turn to for that, and it wouldn't be a problem. It sounded like an amazing arrangement for me. That sounds like a dream arrangement if it's possible to make that work. And then it also fulfills my desires, I guess, to have like multiple partners and everything. So it seemed like a really good balance on both ends of that.
Yeah, it seems on the surface, like at least the approach of that, it seems like a really good answer to kind of a tough question. The idea that your one partner needs to be everything for you in your life is again, it's like a surface level thing. You're just raised that way. That's the assumption. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of look at that in reality, and it's, people are finite, and often the things I want are not exactly the things my wife wants, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So like the idea of being able to spread that out across people who are able to provide that in one way or another is really, really interesting. See a lot of that in the kink community, right? Like especially with like fetishes or something, you might see someone who's into something, but their partner doesn't want to give them that. So it might be like, oh, in that case, well, go find another partner for that. Like, you want to get your balls stepped on, or whatever the fuck it happens to be, go find someone else for that. Like, we can work around that, which I think is just a.
Which is, and that's actually so true. Something that I don't want to say this bothers me. I'm trying to be very careful with how I phrase things. I don't want to insult like any particular community. To be ultra clear, I think all types of relationships are cool. I think that there are a lot of people that couldn't do poly relationships, and I think there are a lot of people that can't do monogamous relationships. So whatever relationship people ultimately decide on, whatever works best for their life, I think is awesome. One thing that I don't think is as much fun is if you have like a particular kink or fetish. I know that people will say like, oh, well, like if you love your partner, like, you can engage in certain activities because, it makes them happy and that's good. There's always going to be a huge difference between engaging in a behavior that like somebody genuinely likes versus engaging in a behavior that somebody is just trying to satisfy you with. So that when you mention specifically like satisfaction of like other types of like kinks or fetishes, it's not very satisfying in my opinion if you've got like a partner that's just like kind of into it because they want you to be into it versus finding somebody that's like genuinely into it. Like that experience I don't think can be replicated by somebody just trying to appease you, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's enough. Like if my wife wants to watch a romantic comedy and that's not really my thing, probably sometimes I appease her and it's not the end of the world, and it might be enough for her there. But if it's something that you want, like you want not only going along with, but like enthusiastic participation in, then that might not be something that I can provide her with. That I might never be. It's kind of a ridiculous example with the romantic comedy, but the point remains. Right?
Yeah, for sure,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So for me, it was extremely eye opening for that. So. It's interesting too, like the idea that that you're kind of like you're almost officers. So how does it go from extremely busy to poly, right? So like a part of me is like relationships are a lot of time and energy, and if I were super busy, it would be a juggling act to fit in multiple relationships on top of that. It would feel like.
Yeah, 100%.
So how is that an answer?
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. So if a poly couple were to ask me if I was poly, I actually would just answer that no, I just do open relationships. But then if people in open relationships ask me what I do, I probably would say I'm closer to poly. So for my particular interests, I obviously really enjoy sexual activity with other people, but I also enjoy like a level of physical intimacy as well. So like for me, like the idea of like fucking somebody and like leaving that night is like that's kind of sad to me. I like cuddling with people. I like to watch movies. I like to hang out, like eat and stuff. So like I would say like the level of intimacy that I look for with people is generally closer than what people in open relationships are okay with. However, if like an actual poly couple were to ask me, I don't juggle multiple relationships. Kind of. I don't think I do, or at least I don't do it in name. But like there are girls that I have sex with on a somewhat regular basis that like we also go out to movies and we go out to eat and we talk or whatever. But it's not like so often that people will be like, oh, that's a girlfriend. But the relationship is such that like people would look at this and be like, this seems like it's a little bit more than a friends with benefits situation. Does that make sense? It's kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, let me see if I understand. So like an uncharitable reading of that would be essentially like you don't want to commit the time and effort to a relationship, Drew. But like another reading of that from my, like when I hear this, is almost like you're almost like set up to be like the secondary partner for a lot of other people. That's what it almost sounds like.
Yeah, I love this. Okay, I would honestly just say the first one, but you know what? I like that secondary. I like the secondary phrasing of that a lot better. It is true. I just don't think if I had like. I think I would be truly poly if I had 36 hours in a day and I worked the same amount. Like I didn't have to work the other 12 hours that I added to my day. I'd probably be truly poly then. But yeah, let's go with like I'm a really good secondary partner to a lot of other women that would be in poly relationships. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah, no judgment whatsoever. That I'm just trying to again think of this like for me, like thinking of this functionally. I'm like, okay, well, how does that work for him? But I get the point that if you don't have to be there for everything, if you're there for these parts that are enjoyable to you, and you only have a limited amount of time with that, and that meets their needs for that, that works out pretty well for everyone involved.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like, yeah. So, all right. So a lot of, unfortunately, as I said, some of this is going to be just straight up agreement for that. And
yeah, no problem.
And I like the idea too, like, you put out there that, okay, everyone's going to find their relationship for that. And I know there's a lot of morality that comes along with this, right? Like some of this stuff is like whipped into you from like at the earliest age possible. These are how these things are defined. But it just feels like when you start pulling apart the other parts of your life, right? You start thinking about like, well, you're going to plan for a job. You're going to plan for a career. You're going to plan for your education. You're going to make decisions about how you want your life to look like by making these things as well. And relationships for me it's always been very frustrating for this because relationships aren't taught. right? Not on like a academic level or a school level, right? You're not
Sure.
like
It's all
going
like
through high
modeling
school.
basically, right? Like you're looking at other
Yeah.
people's, yeah.
You're maybe taught like how biology works, and you're maybe taught about like safe sex or something and about consent perhaps, but you're not taught a lot about like the management of a relationship and what portion of your life, you know, in general, not you particularly necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
what portion of people's lives are spent in a relationship, and what portion of their happiness or enjoyment of their lives or self-worth in their lives is in part defined by the relationships they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a really, you know, particularly during COVID, but also with some of the kind of the identity movements that have come about recently or been had a lot more light shined on them recently, that this is a question that a lot of people are kind of feeling and wrestling with.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems kind of dumb not to have at least offered the tool of, well, hey, there are other ways to do relationships than are kind of mostly conveyed as kind of the go-to method for relationships.
Yeah, it feels like when we talk about relationships in society, we talk about relationships the same ways that doctors talk about health. Like, if you go to the hospital, a doctor can never make you healthy. They can just make sure you're not dying. And that's what they essentially do, is they get you to, you're not dying anymore, so here you go. And then they send you on your way. And when we talk about relationships, it's the same way. It's like, okay, well, are you being raped? Nope, great. Are you being mentally or physically abused? Nope, awesome. Okay, cool. Like, yeah. And then they leave it alone, and you never actually like have a more deep conversation. It's like, well, how do you know if a relationship is like truly fulfilling, or you know, or like as you said, like you know, what should your mental state be going into a relationship? Like, how much of my life should I spend in relationships? Like, how do I decide? Like, you know, like there are so many hard questions for kids coming out of high school. I'm like, I'm dating a girl. We've been dating for 2 years, and I want to go to college in a different state. Like, do I sacrifice my college career and potentially my future career to stay with this girl? Like, we have like zero guidance on any of that. Basically, they just teach you is like, as long as you're not getting
guidance.
yeah, or maybe yeah, sure, go.
Okay, which is just the idea of the morality with that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that, oh, you should never be cheating on someone. You should, you know, like if you have a commitment to this person, you should honor that commitment. And I don't disagree with any of these things, but the idea that you might form a relationship at like 17 or 18, and it might even be a great relationship, but that then is it, that you have to make all decisions based around maintaining that relationship and only that relationship, and all of your future decisions should incorporate that. It's kind of crazy. It feels like a lot of the times we aren't given like how to leave a relationship. You know, I like the fact that the vast majority of my relationships that I've left have ended on good terms, that it's possible to end that relationship, get out of that relationship, maybe not in that moment necessarily, but you know, because it's going to be one-sided no matter how you do it pretty much.
Yeah.
But you can still be a decent person to that person. You can still have a relationship afterwards, even if it's not a sexual or romantic relationship. And I don't think people are taught how to leave a relationship. I don't think that ever comes up anywhere, right?
Yeah, I get a lot of pushback on that, but a really big red flag for me personally is when somebody hates all of their exes. If I meet somebody and they like are on really bad terms and they hate all of the people that they used to, it's like, okay, well, hold on, like you dated these people, so what the fuck is happening here that you absolutely hate all these people? I would agree. I think it's pretty good, and I think I would say it's pretty good to be on good terms with at least most of your exes. Obviously, I need to caveat the fuck out of this conversation. Obviously, this doesn't apply if you were with somebody that was like physically or sexually or emotionally abusive, or, you know, did like some crazy shit and tried to kill you or whatever. I wouldn't expect you to be on good terms with that person, of course. But for like the normal, like run-of-the-mill relationships, like, yeah, okay.
You make me a little nervous with these disclaimers. I'm gonna throw out one of my own, which is I'm not trying to be prescriptive with this. The idea of the interest in this for me is in part a reaction to the last PK episode I was on, which is sometimes I don't feel like I get to dig into an issue like this deep enough, right? Like I don't.
Wait, you're telling me Kyle doesn't give you totally fleshed out, nuanced takes on, you know, multi-relationship? Wait, hold on, I gotta ask now. If you were talking about this on that show, okay, how many times have we called a cuck? Did this happen?
I've been on that show like 25 times, I think.
Holy
definitely.
shit. Okay.
So like I'm sure I've been called not by the host, but like their viewer base.
Oh,
like,
okay. All
some
right,
of
that's
their viewer
cool.
base
All right.
loves me, some of their viewer base hates me, kind of shit. And I agree, right? Like the show is not really designed for that. It's kind of like a, you know, current events kind of hot takes on shit with like poking fun at some stuff kind of deal, right? With a like a little bit of a conservative overtone to it, you know? So it's kind of like, when I want to talk about this in depth, I can't do that. So I don't want to be prescriptive here to the people who are listening to this, but I do want to take a second and actually think about these things. And this is kind of one of my big criticisms of this is it doesn't get fucking thought about. We kind of just go through
You just write it off instantly, and you just go with what you've kind of memorized and been shown without actually thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm bad at this anyways, like in the sense of like I get into ruts and things. Like I'm just kind of like, this is how it works. I'm working with it. And you know, like I do a lot of strategy gaming. So you're optimizing inside of a system, right? You're told these are the rules. How do you make the best results out of those rules? Not realizing that you don't have to play by those fucking rules here.
Yeah.
So it's one of the ones that has just been very kind of interesting for me growing up and experiencing this. And I can't thank my graduate school enough for putting me in a position where I got to experience this because it was so unique for me. So. Yeah. So all right. So I think there's another one that kind of comes up all the time. You see this. So I don't know like what like Reddits you're on, but like I'm subscribed to things like our sexuality and stuff like this, where there's people talking about relationships, right?
I
My wife
stopped
and I-
reading so many sex subreddits on Reddit because I honest to God feel like
God,
most
no.
of them are it's literally like advice by virgins for virgins. Like I read stuff and I'm just like, wait, what? There are so many like floating pieces of advice on the internet that like it can't be real. Like I can think of so many. Like one funny meme is like the like there's no such thing as a bad blowjob or whatever. Like I see stuff like this. Like there's no possible way that real life people that are sex havers are writing this. I can't believe it. Like I actually end up like not reading so many. Like so I can't tell if it's just like people that are like imagining themselves in situations, like writing creative writing projects for each other, or I don't know. So I don't personally. I'm sorry I cut you off. You were just about to say something about your wife.
No. No, it's exactly the type of thought I was going to go with this. Which, and additionally to that, there's a bunch of virtue signaling and with this. Like anytime anyone ever mentions something that might be a problem or might be like
Dump 'em.
stepping over a boundary or something, it's like you must leave this person immediately. There's no possible way to have a relationship with them. And then the other one is it's always just communication. And though I absolutely agree, good communication is essential. It seems insane to just be like the answer to all your questions is communication, and then not really talk about what you're supposed to be referencing with that. So like one of the ones that comes up, I think in a lot of different relationships is like differences in sex drive. And this one is really interesting to me in terms of solve that for a minute inside of the confine, the box of monogamous, egalitarian, monogamous paired relationship. Solve differential sex drives. Like just try. Like
Yeah, the solution is you have to break up because there is no other, or you start masturbating a whole bunch more, which is unsatisfying, right? But
yeah, or one person's like unhappy, and it's even worse. Like masturbation might be an answer, or pornography or something. But like if the other person is then additionally jealous of something like that, or finds that as like a negative,
now
like
you're
how the fuck do
super
you solve
fucked.
that? Yeah, and so I don't know. For me, like it was interesting to see that again as something else. If you get people with different sex drives, well, it doesn't have to only be sex between those two people. It could be another person involved in that, or some other aspect of that. So the other one for me, which is I keep mentioning this, but we're not really touching on it, is so poly is one aspect of a different type of relationship. Have you had any experience with, not necessarily personally, but just in general, with like non-egalitarian relationships, like relationships that aren't based on an equal between each partner?
Is this more towards like kind of like
Power exchange or
like what?
Yeah. Like power exchange?
Yeah, like some, not really, no. Like maybe briefly sexually, but not in any like actual like relationship dynamics, no. I mean, other than like the normal imbalances that exist, like I'm making the money and the other person or whatever, but no, not anything explicitly based on
nothing like systematic for that. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that was another one that was really interesting. Another kind of like box like shattering moment for me, like hearing that discussed. Like there was I've met a lot of people doing this, of course, and met a lot of friends from that, some of whom I'm still friends with. And I met this one couple who was explaining it, and they were kind of explaining this, like everyone makes these kind of distinctions in their relationships between responsibilities. So like maybe it's your job to take out the trash, or it's your job to do the whatever it happens to be. And some portion of this in a kind of an egalitarian relationship might start doing tit for tat stuff, right? Like in the sense of, well, if I did the garbage 5 times last week and she hasn't done anything this week, why is she being so lazy? Why do I have to do anything? Oh, why do I have to do everything kind of stuff?
Okay.
Or maybe it's kind of like the lines of, well, whose turn is it now? And there's this kind of breakdown of, well, what do we do about this? Whose domain is this? Should I be protective of this because it's my domain and she's stepping on my territory, or this type of thing? And we're all making these distinctions on some level. And the argument this couple presented to me, which I thought was a pretty cool argument, was essentially these types of things are not things that we want in our relationships. These disputes over territory and disputes over who owns this thing or not owns this thing. And for them, they found that they didn't like each other and who they became when they're doing this.
Yeah.
So their solution to this was a power exchange relationship where they're just like, okay, one of those persons cedes authority to the other person. And what does that mean? That means, that other person can leave the relationship whenever the fuck they want. And that ends that kind of relationship type of deal. But while they're in that relationship, they're agreeing to a breakdown of responsibility, predefined, predetermined, negotiated, discussed about that, and applying it to their life in a way that's designed to make their relationship better, less problematic for themselves, and more functional. And like, I just, how the fuck do we not have classes talking about this to some degree, right? Like,
Yeah, and
thinking
like,
about, go ahead.
So I've tried to wrestle with this a lot recently because like every new person taking their very junior venture into philosophy, one thing that I really enjoy is like deconstruction, like taking apart prior concepts and kind of like figuring out like why they work. It's like a kid taking apart like a remote controller, right? Like you take it apart, you see the little parts on the inside, and then when you put it back together, you feel like you have a better understanding of it. I feel like sometimes, societally speaking, I feel like we engage in a lot of deconstruction but it's destructive. Like we want to tear apart all the old stuff without understanding why any of it worked the way that it did, and why maybe there, and more importantly, not realizing that maybe there was some value that could have been extracted there. You know, for me personally, I really, really, really like strong, dominant women. So people that like talk a lot of shit, people that have very powerful personalities, I enjoy that a lot. Okay, so that's my personal preference. However, when people talk about like traditional like male-female monogamous relationships where the wife is like the homemaker and the husband is like the money maker or whatever, like I think that if you honestly engage with that, it's easy to see why that separation of responsibilities and like the different domains that each people exist in, why that is such an effective way of like doling out responsibilities in a relationship, and why maybe there might be reasons why those types of relationships traditionally have been successful, at least as far as like delineation of responsibility goes. And I think a lot of people miss that sometimes, where we want to take apart so many old structures that we don't ever look at like, well, maybe there's some reasons why these worked, and maybe we can take those lessons and apply them in newer constructs of the future. So like you said, like maybe a power differential in a relationship, maybe it's not traditional anyway, except we do have like, you know, you take care of all this stuff, I do all this stuff, and then we leave each other alone insofar as like these responsibilities are concerned.
Yeah, it feels like that's the strength of deconstruction. Essentially, is you make these components that make something up modular,
Yeah.
and then you pick the modules that you want, and you rebuild something different out of it that has
Yeah.
those modules you want and doesn't have the ones you don't want.
Yep, I would argue that's the purpose of deconstruction. Any other type of deconstruction is purely just damaging, to just rip stuff apart and not understand what the fuck you're doing, and then you just go to something different without. Yeah.
Yeah, and the power exchange stuff is particularly fucking loaded because not only is it kind of it depends what I mean. It's funny too. Like some of the stuff we actually looked at at the university for this was like the types of messages that are okay to display in public, things like advertising, things like humor, etc. And it almost always pushes in the opposite of the power dynamic, right? So if you portray a power exchange relationship where the male is the bottom and the female is the top, like that was okay for advertising. You can make jokes out of that. That would be because it was kind of opposite the way that things have been.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny and not threatening. But you rarely saw the opposite with that, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so fucking loaded.
Mm-hmm.
It's so loaded in a society that has only had, you know, voting rights for women for X amount of years, kind of deal, right? Like,
And I was
dealing with this shit.
I was on board with that, and I accepted that for a while, but I have to say that at this point, and I don't know if it's just an age thing or what, I start to roll my eyes, where like when I see something and it's like, yeah, I understand why this is funny, but man, if you did this the other way around, people would kill you for it. And at some point it starts to feel a little bit, I don't know if I'd say preachy or hollow or like, okay, you know, one like a pop.
Is a pretty good accuracy of that,
Yeah, maybe.
It's missing the point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. One kind of like pop thing that I look at or in pop culture or whatever, and I don't want to get too bogged down, I guess, in debating movies, but like one trope that I notice a lot and I kind of wonder is we have this advent of like female characters being written in like superhero movies and everything, which is cool. I like that. I love that. I love the increase in diversity representation. I think that's fucking awesome. But I wonder sometimes, did you see the movie, is it Captain Marvel?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
Sometimes when I see movies that have female leads, it feels like the female lead. Did you watch the new Star Wars movies?
No.
Oh fuck. Okay. Damn. Okay.
Well, give me 2 seconds of the plot line of Captain Marvel. Is that the one with the I can't remember. There was like a series of Avenger ones. There was some girl who was like super powered up.
Yes.
Everything. She was like Superman
Yeah.
but female.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Okay. That's that one. Okay. I saw.
Yeah.
I think
Do you know
I
who
saw
the
parts of
Quartering
it,
is on
all that.
YouTube? Oh, okay. He has like a million videos. He hates this woman, Brie Larson. He's like one of the old anti-SJWs. Jesus Christ. Okay, but yeah. But like sometimes when I watch these movies with the female leads, I notice that like compared to male leads, the women like never have like big struggles or problems that show up. They just like breeze through everything. And I wonder sometimes when I watch them, it's like, well, from narratively, this is pretty unsatisfying. It's not really satisfying to watch a protagonist succeed without any obstacles. And I kind of wonder if they're afraid to show them struggling because the message might be that women are weak. You know, like I wonder that sometimes when I watch stuff, especially with the new Star Wars. I'm like, man, like she's just defeating every single person instantly. She comes up. I wonder if it's because they're so
Which is
scared.
kind of ironic in the worst way, though, right? Because the whole point of writing them in as the protagonist is to demonstrate that these are people who are just as rounded.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But they're not like some supporting character. And the minute you stop giving them struggles like other characters are going to have, you trivialize it.
Mm-hmm.
So like immediately like undermines the point of it, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So, All right.
You were talking about
We're
in
next.
advertising, it's safe to show like basically the reverse of what has traditionally been expected.
Yeah, because it's so loaded, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the connotations that go with that, especially if you look at some of the, I'm calling it power exchange. I can't even keep up. I'm not in the academia anymore, right? So I do video gaming for a living now these days. So like
Sure.
I don't keep up with this, although my wife does keep up with some of this, and I can't keep up with the terminology in this. But it's been called master slave, power exchange, authority. The optics on master slave are so fucking horrendous, right? Like it needs a rebranding. Because if you're going to sell power exchange as a relationship subtype that some people may find fulfills them in better ways than, or fulfills them more, you can't like start with like the words of master slave, because you're just fucked, because it's like the absolute worst like branding ever. So
Yeah, I hate that. Man, dude, I hate how much I've learned growing because I was so confident when I was younger. I feel like I learned actually so much from my religious upbringing that like I can call back to now to get a better understanding of the world. In some ways, I guess I'm happy that I had the experience. But then in other ways, I'm like, fuck, like why couldn't I figure this out earlier? I think that so personally, I'm very atheist. I don't think I'll ever be theological again, although who knows, but I don't think so. But the way that Christian people would kind of view like male-female relationships, I think that can give somebody more insight into how a power exchange can look without it necessarily being demeaning. Because I noticed that a lot of people, and I have to explain this so many times, a lot of people on the outside looking into traditional, like especially religious relationships with traditional gender roles, always view it as like, oh, the woman is basically the fucking slave bitch to the man, and it's fucking horrible. She has no freedom, blah, 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 blah. But within the context of these communities, it's like, well, no, like it's just like the domain of the woman and the domain of the man are two separate things. And it's not like one is like necessarily better than or greater than the other. It's more just there are separate roles that they fill out. And that's how it's viewed within those relationships. Not necessarily like, in some ways it's subservient, but not necessarily, and not, the subservience doesn't carry the same negativity that it does when we typically think of like master in the field, like whipping the slave, you know, that we have that connotation with.
And maybe two things to kind of talk to that point. First is that although the religious model is kind of like an interesting model to look at for that, like when the religious model comes with all these like presuppositions before you jump into that, right? So that the people in that, the husband and the wife, to take whatever example of this, right, probably haven't negotiated those roles, right? These are roles defined by perhaps the religion that they're a part of, or the Bible,
Or their
or whatever
community
else,
or
right?
church,
So like when you build that yourself instead, you get to define that. It doesn't have to be a breakdown exactly along those lines. It might be, hey, we break down along these lines except for the kids, for example, or whatever else. I don't know what you do. Maybe like the man wants control over the kids, and the woman wants control over the business, or whatever the hell it happens to be, right? Because you're constructing it, you get to make that distinction as it works for you. So yeah, I agree. Like these are not always been historically abusive necessarily, although some parts of those are probably things we don't want to duplicate in that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there's a room to change that around as you see fit. And you're saying something. You're like as I get older, I hate that I've learned these things. I've always felt that way about religion. Like I've never been religious. I've always been, for as long as I can remember, I've been an atheist, and I wasn't raised religious, right? But like a part of me always wishes I was religious, because I feel like it'd be so nice to just be like, you don't have to worry about it. You're just like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know how I need to do it. I'm told exactly prescriptively what I need to do and how to do it. That seems like a really nice load off your shoulders to kind of have that sorted out. And I'm not saying that necessarily you can do that in a relationship like this, but in some degree, you do take that struggle out of at least part of your relationship, right? You go, here's the things I want to have, and I've negotiated this with my partner, and we sat down and talked about this, or we've updated it as it became something we see fit to do. But we have that. We know what's appropriate and what's right in the relationship that we might be in. So at least potentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways, so. Let's see, going on with that. I'm sorry it's so disjointed. I'm finding myself surprisingly nervous, which is kind of weird. I fucking stream
fine.
all the time. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm not seeing a face, so I'm like getting kind of trouble with like the body feedback.
Shit. Well, I can throw you up
I could, I guess, tune into your stream, but
well, that doesn't really work.
I guess I could just share
Discord
video.
lets
There we
you
go.
do video and on both sometimes. So there you go.
Yeah.
I got my face. Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Cool. That actually helps quite a bit for me. Thanks. All right. So, one of the other things. So I've heard you mention, I can't remember what, is my video coming through or no? It looks like it's still loading.
Nope. But I'm not nervous, so you're good.
Okay, perfect. So I think I've heard you mention on your channel before, and it sounds like you don't kind of know a lot about kink necessarily. It sounds like.
I probably know way more than the average person, but not as much as somebody actively involved in those communities.
Yeah, sure. just some distinctions of that, because I think some of the working definitions for like differences between power exchange and, for example, DS, which is kind of like when you're like, oh, about DS, like DS tends to be kind of like activity related a little bit more. So it's kind of like you might scene, and like in a scene there might be a top and a bottom, and that might be like a kind of DS activity. Power exchange tends to be more of a before and after. You might have a 24/7 power exchange, or you might have a power exchange where someone shows up for a weekend, and in that context of the weekend they're doing power exchange for that weekend, and there might be DS stuff involved in that power exchange, but the idea is that kind of differential power for that.
Yeah, I guess the way that I view this is usually external or internal to scenes, basically. Like anything that carries over outside of like particular sexual activity seems to be more power exchanging to me versus just like having like a DS scene, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a fine guideline for that, but just that there is some distinction for that, because you might have some really fucking hot sex or something that involves some like DS stuff in it, but there might be no power exchange outside of that. That might just be essentially in the bedroom. People are playing at whatever they're playing at for that, having fun with that, and that's all good and well. So I kind of have I'm happy to talk more about that if there's more for that. I kind of feel like I'm guiding the convo here a little bit in terms of the conversation. So if you have more for that, please like jump in. But I kind of have a transition point from that too.
Yeah, go for it. Wherever you want to go. Okay, I'm here to follow you.
All right.
My mind is ready to be molded.
I don't quite understand quite how we're having this conversation necessarily. Like I'm glad that viewers put it together kind of deal, but it's still kind of out of the blue. Like there's no issue to talk about necessarily, you know? So,
oh, sure. 95% of my conversation is usually screaming at people and debating, so it's okay to just have a chill convo every now and then.
Yeah, right. It is kind of nice to have a.
It's really hard to explore. This isn't unique to sexual issues. I would say for social issues, it's really hard to explore any of these topics because everything is so morally loaded on like every side of the conversation. To where like, oh man, I don't know how much of my stuff do you know who iHypocrite is?
That's pretty recent, right?
Yeah. Oh,
like
fuck.
They just recently put some stuff up about it. I think I watched a part of that, skimmed it, and got kind of annoyed with it and left.
Yeah. So like you either have on one end people that are incredibly judgmental of any type of alternative relationship that basically get really judgy and preachy and say that, like it's degenerate or whatever dumb shit conservatives say about relationships. But then on the other hand, I can feel sometimes that people get a little bit too preachy on the other end, where they'll be like condemning monogamous relationships or saying that everybody should be trying, this particular type of thing, even if it's not necessarily for everybody. So I find it's really, really hard to have level-headed, reasonable people to have, I would say for almost all social issues, and then sex is like a subset of that, to have those types of conversations with. So.
Yeah, and I hope I'm not coming off preaching one way or the other, because the interesting part of me is actually to like pick apart the parts that work out of each of them and try to put that together into something useful for me. So at least personally. So yeah, I agree. It can be very difficult to find a kind of balanced look at it because and also I think some of it is like the come to Jesus moment, right? Like a lot of the people, at least in the kink community, who, the people that I did my graduate work with, et cetera, are very much sold on it, right? They've had the Kool-Aid, and now they've had the Kool-Aid. They're kind of like, they're wanting to tell everyone how great the fucking Kool-Aid is. Sure. And, that may not actually be the case for everyone. And some people are not going to work with this. There's horrible issues of like jealousy that comes up with this, right?
Yeah,
like, some people are just seem to be, for whatever reason, either more predetermined to do this or whatever the rationale behind where it comes from. It just doesn't work for them, right? The kind of poly aspect of it. Or maybe the power exchange stuff steps on toes. Like, again, I think you nailed it pretty succinctly early. Like, I don't care what relationship you have in it, what relationship you're having, but I would prefer that you had spent the time looking at your relationship to make sure it's actually satisfying you and fitting you and your partner or partners as best as it can. It seems like a very reasonable thing to have people doing for something that's so disproportionately impactful on their life, which is for me. I got a couple.
I find
other kink.
Let me real quick, just off of that. I find that people in general have a really hard problem. One really big problem that we get in society is it's very rare that somebody takes a step back and actually thinks about what would make them happy, but rather kind of like society senses a whole bunch of signals about these are things that you need to do and then these will make you happy. And it's pretty shocking, but like I think that fundamentally people lack the ability to kind of introspect and figure out like what would make me happy. I think typically the feeling that I get is if I ask somebody like what do you think makes you happy, the answers that I get, it feels like I'm getting like an amalgamation of everything that I've heard in the past 20 years. And is it what a person like, well, what makes me happy? Well, if I had like a job with a good career and I was making a lot of money and like I think that like, if I could maybe travel or whatever, it's like, well, is this really? Like, is this actually what would make you happy? And I think that to a large part, I'm hoping my personal experiences aren't sharing this too much because I know so many people this happened to. But I feel like in a large part, this has been a big problem with the millennial generation, that we got pushed into this hyper technological world and everybody went to college and people got a lot of good jobs and are making a lot of money. And now in their early 30s, mid 30s, they're in this really weird spot where they made all the right moves and they did everything society told them to do, but they're like fucking miserable. They're not happy. And like, I always think like one of the biggest indicators of this for me, one of the saddest things I hear is when people tell me like, oh, like my happiest days were in high school. I had so many friends around me. Like we went out, we did cool things. I remember goofing off and playing video games. And like, that was like the best time of my life. And it's like, oh my God, like what have you been working towards this whole time then? Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad that statement. And like, I liked high school just fine. I did all right with that, I think. But like the idea that would, at a time where I knew so fucking little about myself and so little about things and how things worked and had so little control over my life and so little planning on what I was going to do with my life. It seems crazy that would be like a highlight of it.
Which are all...
Like, what have I...
Oh, sorry. Fuck. Just what you just said is so important because all of those things are things that people associate with happiness. Like more freedom, the ability to choose to do different things, right? You've got the whole paradox of freedom is something that people talk about, right? And it seems like those things don't actually make you that much happy at all. Like if you ask people, like if you could choose between like choosing your own friends or choosing people you hang out with versus being thrown into a room with random people, what would you, everybody would say, oh, I want the ability to choose everything, right? Well, where does that get you? It's in your basement alone playing World of Warcraft with people you've only ever seen, digitally before, right? But what is the alternative? Being thrown together in an environment with what? In school, in college, in workplaces where everybody, inevitably, 99% of people will make friends here. You will have more social interaction. Like things will happen, Sometimes some of the happiest moments of your life can be the times when you have like the least amount of choice or freedom. I don't know if it's like a part of liberalism or more specifically capitalism or the commodification of things that sells us that idea that we need like infinite choice and infinite freedom. But I think it really misses the mark on the things that actually like make a person happy, All right, sorry.
Yeah, two things that like to riff off that just immediately. The two things that immediately leap out of that for me is the first that sometimes you need to be challenged to fucking grow. And it sounds like such a corny thing to say, but like you don't always like you don't know what's best for you a lot of the time. Yeah. Especially growing up. Like you learn this shit about you and you learn this shit about yourself from experiencing stuff, So it's like if you ask me what I thought I wanted when I was 18, I would have given you something that I would have hated now just because I didn't know enough about myself. And it's no knock on me at 18. It's just part of growing up is fucking experiencing that shit.
Yeah.
And then the other oh shit, I just totally blanked on the other idea of this was. I wonder, part of the research I did in school was about influencing, right? Like this is social psychology. So it's all about kind of the individual and society and the impacts on them kind of deal, right? So some of the, and my advisor had a background in persuasion. So his advisor was Bob Cialdini, who wrote things like, all these marketing principle shit, right? Like how to influence people, how to sell shit, like this kind of stuff, right? And I kind of wonder if you went back, I think it'd be a really fun graduate program or graduate project for someone somewhere, is to go back and like look at how people, especially younger people, identify what they think would make them happy and then like look at successful ad campaigns. Like I wonder how much those just like immediately fucking overlap in terms of like how much you think you want is just kind of like built into you from the shit that you're absorbing.
And I'm sure there's some like, there's gotta be some cycle there, some feedback cycle where people get convinced of some bullshit. God, I'm reminded of the concept of, have you ever heard of like the concept of simulacra before?
Maybe.
Okay, fuck. Okay, I won't get into this, but
give me the 2-second summary because it sounds familiar. The simulacra is like something that's really close to like reality, but not quite kind of deal.
Yeah, kind of. Oh god, I hesitate to explain this because I might fuck it up horribly. But essentially, it's basically this idea that like you get. I think the summary sentence is like copies without originals. That at some point, like a company is going to sell you something, and the reason why it's cool is because it simulates something else, but we don't even know what the original like cool thing was anymore. We're just doing it for the sake of itself. And you end up in society where you get like these hyper commodified things that like everybody knows that they want them, and we derive like a great sense of value and purpose from these things. But like if you truly were to step back, it's like, wait, why the fuck do we even care about this thing? Nobody would actually have an answer. You'd be like, I don't actually know. Like why does the type of shoe you wear make you a cool person? Like I have no fucking, like maybe at one point in history, like having better work boots was important or whatever, but like it's all just like social signaling to each other basically. And that kind of like that big hang up in terms of like the acquisition of goods for your personal satisfaction, I think is like one of the saddest things that we've like committed to ourselves, that like completely fucks people's minds up in terms of like orienting them in the right direction to find like happiness or purpose in their lives.
Yeah, and I think at the risk of echo chambering this a little bit. I feel like I watched something, maybe a recommendation from your channel, talking about like this exact thing happening in like television series, particularly comedy television series over time, right? Like they start like essentially self-referencing so much that the initial message of the content gets lost. Which
Sure.
I think
Oh,
resonates a little
actually,
bit.
it was from the same video. The guy's name is Cuck Philosophy.
That's what I'm worried about. This echo chamber.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I love his videos. I think it's I actually disagreed. I think with a great deal of stuff in that Simpsons video, but I really like his videos. I super recommend them. But yeah, the biggest interesting thing that I took from that was basically that you have a critique of society, and that critique gets assimilated and then becomes part of the new commodification cycle. Like the prototypical example of this has to be like a fucking like a Che Guevara T-shirt manufactured by like H&M or something.
But I think you and I are to some degree living the next prototypical element of that, because I think fucking streamers are essentially doing that, right? Like the commoditization of like influencers. Like it's like you take these people who are having these real experiences online, and then you're suddenly like you're harvesting that for as much fucking productive. Not that I have any problem with capitalism, and this is how I pay my fucking bills. I'm not in any way sad to be a shill of this in some degree, but at the same level, it's like you do lose something to some degree from that, because it gets reabsorbed into it, and then it loses the impact of it.
For sure.
So I think, so it's just kind of funny to be a part of that.
To be the next step. Yeah, you can never escape the meta, right? Or you just become the next meta. The reactionaries become the new mainstays in the next generation.
Yeah, I think this is probably a positive of capitalism, right?
A positive of capitalism that
it's so adaptive that it even eats the criticism to some degree, right? Like it self-absorbs it, makes it a commodity, and then
I mean, it's positive insofar as it helps the system perpetuate itself. I guess it depends on what we talk about in respect to. I think capitalism is
maybe positive is the wrong word.
Yeah.
It shows how adaptive the system is.
Exactly. It's very tenacious, which is a benefit of capitalism. I think in terms of economic organization, I think capitalism is fucking amazing. It seems to be the case. But in terms of like fulfillment in our personal lives, it is absolutely horrible, right? There's no market incentive for making people better, or making people happier, rather, right? Just for making people feel happier, or for making people feel like if they buy your thing, they'll be happier, which is really negative.
Yeah, and I think it's something that at least I struggle with a little bit as a streamer is that kind of fine line between like chasing like viewership and then chasing stuff that makes me happy, right? And it's like, like I set my work schedule to some part on so I have time with my wife. I want to be able to spend time with her. It's a relationship I really fucking care about. Like I want to play games that I engage with or enjoy, so I'm not every day logging on and hating my fucking life.
Yeah.
So like, and like that compared to like chasing the newest, shiniest, flashiest thing kind of deal is sometimes something that I have to deal with. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So kind of related to I don't know if it's a morality thing necessarily, but I've got kind of something related to the power exchange stuff. So I guess it's kink, not necessarily power exchange. So again, as part of this research, one of the ideas that I got introduced to was the idea of what consensual sadism is.
I mean, like hurting somebody, but they're into it.
Yeah, kind of like that, or more likely hurting someone with their permission kind of deal.
Yeah, consensual,
like
non-consensual.
Might be physical. It could be something like just like flogging or something. Like it might be a physical thing like that, or it might be something else.
Sure.
The community does all sorts of fucking extremes on this, right? Like from like anything to like the most extreme you can think of, pretty much, right? So one of the questions we kind of had as a research team, one of the things that we were working at, which was, is it likely that it is essentially a consensual sadist and a non-consensual sadist are essentially, it's the same personality variable, perhaps, right? The same trait, and it's just a spectrum.
Wait, hold on. Let me just so I understand the terms. When we say non-consensual sadist, that sounds like just an abuse victim, or what do we mean when we say that? Sorry.
No, not an abuse. Well, no, the sadist is the actor, right? So it would be the abuser, not the victim.
Abuser. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, you're right. Masochist versus sadist. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So essentially, is it the same trait with some like moderating stuff in it, right? Or is it, for example, like maybe think about it this way, right? If you're a sadist and you want to play in a kink community, and the kink community values safety, and that the kink community talks to itself and vets people to some degree, maybe the best way you get your sadist fix is you play along with those rules, not because you're against those rules necessarily, or not because you're for those rules necessarily, but because potentially this is the most functional way for you to get play partners.
Gotcha. Before you give the answer, my intuition would be that they're very, very different, but maybe you'll surprise me. Go for it.
I wish I could give you an answer because it's still a question. It's an open question, right? So the second part of that, then the other side of that would be, well, maybe it's two different things, right? Maybe what drives a non-consensual sadist is essentially not the same thing driving a consensual sadist, and the consensual sadist is really acting on some other desire or other urge or other kind of personality trait with that. So I think the idea of this is kind of, for me, kind of interesting for that, because we look at like, I know you do some D&D stuff, right? And I've kind of enjoyed the D&D stuff in the past too. I like playing evil characters in D&D. Now, the question is why? Why is this, right? What is the enjoyment out of that? Does that make me a shitty person who I'm essentially suppressing this stuff most of the time and then I bring it out in this domain? Or is this domain acceptable because it's kind of, D&D kind of weakens that example a little bit, but the morality of that is something that I kind of find like a little bit interesting in that.
For sure.
Because I think this was maybe a Dr. K interview you did. I think saw you on Dr. K, I think. And I think there was some comment or summary that was something like, Destiny is an evil person who's trying to do well or something like that, or trying to do good.
Yeah.
And like, I'm kind of interested in the morality of that. Does it matter essentially what like the internal consistency of your character is if you're doing these other things, right? Like, does it matter that you're driven by a different thing?
Yeah, so for me, I argue that the internal mechanisms that power your decision making are actually the most important thing, more important than your actual actions, because I feel like it leads you to it's greater predictability is usually what I'm in favor of. So for instance, say somebody walks up to someone on the street, punches them in the head, and the person gets knocked out, goes to the hospital, finds out they had a brain tumor, and they're cured because of that. I wouldn't say that, oh, well, that's kind of that guy is, he's kind of a good guy because he helped the dude. I'd be like, well, hold on. If we run that experiment a million times, most of the people that he punches are not going to the hospital to have their lives saved. It's bad, right? So I think the predictiveness is important there. Yeah.
And maybe we're passing by and not hitting each other on this one, which is, so would you say there's a difference then for the person who adheres to the law because he believes the law is the correct morality system versus the person who adheres to the law because it's what he needs to do to function in society?
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference between those two people.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit more? I don't think I understand.
Yeah, the one guy sucks. I think that, okay, hold on. Let me be careful here so that I give it succinct an answer as possible. What specifically are you asking me? What I think the difference between the two people are, or which person is better, or which person is, exactly?
Yeah, so it kind of follows slightly from the consensual versus non-consensual sadist, right? Like on some level, I'm not convinced it necessarily matters on some level. Like there might be different outcomes in some extreme scenario. For example, like if you relax all the rules on the non-consensual sadist, maybe then they're not playing nice anymore and they're hurting their partner and there's some shitty stuff that comes out of it or something, right? But if you look at it kind of in a more kind of not either side of the spectrum of that, but kind of more in the middle of this. Is there some sort of functional difference between someone who's going along with the rules and following them? We'll give him the benefit of the doubt of like, he's actually doing the work to put that in.
Okay, I understand. So to engage with the hypothetical in the best case possible, I'm going to assume that, well, or maybe this would be part of it. So one would be a person that has like internalized like a set of moral values that aligns with a set of laws, rather than a person that might have a different set of values but just tries to follow laws. We could argue on one end that a person is more likely to follow the spirit of the law if they've actually internalized like the ethics necessary to follow said laws. That's
essentially an outcome argument, right? Because you're thinking they might behave differently in some scenarios.
Yeah, and then eventually what I would make an argument for is kind of like how a person engages with a certain set of rules might be more determined by what's inside rather than just a desire, like a good moral drive inside rather than just a desire to follow a set of rules so they can act out some like what we would otherwise consider a negative thing. So like one example of this, I think you can have a lot of examples of this. Consent is actually an incredibly difficult thing to talk about, and to actually talk about consent requires, it's a pretty exhaustive thing to evaluate because there really is no simple way to point to it. However, there's a lot of ways that you can abuse consent and quote unquote follow the rules. So like, for example, something that's really common as an esports person, right? We travel a lot to events, right? Really common way to pressure a girl into sex is you make an offer for a girl to share a room with you. You don't necessarily put sex on the table. We say, hey, it'd be cool if we share a room, blah, blah, blah. And then once she's there and she has no other alternative, then you start to proposition her. Chances are she's way more likely to say yes because she's worried that if she says no, she's going to lose the room, right? Now, if we're following quote unquote consent, well, if she says yes, it's okay. If you don't touch her inappropriately first, you're not breaking any rules. If you do, right? So like following like just the absolute letter of the law, like, I think, this is actually an okay sexual encounter. But I think that somebody that has like internalized more kind of like the morals behind it, where it's like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't put people in compromising positions where they might otherwise say no. I think that they might have a better engagement with that system, or a more healthy engagement with that system to maximize the outcomes of themselves and other participants than a person who's just strictly trying to follow the letter of the law, if that makes sense. I don't know if you think this is relevant or not.
Two kind of immediate things that push back on that, right?
Go for it.
The first being that, and I swear I did not try to ambush debate you on anything like this. Not the point of this. Just
no problem.
Just exploring the rationale. Yeah. Okay. So just the first of these is that still is an outcome, right? Because essentially you've said, in a scenario where what they're doing is no longer, if the law is consent, and then you're saying, well, there's an interpretation of the consent law that essentially is not as robust or not as strong maybe in terms of what those actions look like, and they're choosing to take that because of a different morality, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going to say that we could just
so-
make the laws more complicated, basically, to account for those?
No,
Oh, okay, okay.
fuck that. The consent law is more complicated.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, when I say law, I just meant like rules. I don't necessarily mean legal laws, but yeah, go ahead.
And the other one of those is I'm thinking about people again from this kink community background. I'm thinking about the consensual sadists that I've met in these worlds, and I'm trying to think of not necessarily the judgments on them necessarily, but like these are often people in successful relationships. These are often people who care deeply about their partners, and they're often people who also have a conflicting drive that gets them off to hurt people. So where is and I don't know that you have an answer. I'm not asking you to make an answer for this, but I want to kind of again put it out there for discussion of, well, where's the morality judgment on that, or if there is any morality judgment on that? What do we, if you're essentially, the argument you just presented suggests that they are in some way less trustworthy or more shitty, I think as you put it, right, than the other person who believes entirely in that belief of I shouldn't hurt someone. But here they are. And they are people who are still trying to have lives and are often doing that successfully with their partners and often doing it in a way that does not cause long-term permanent harm or something like that. So
yeah,
where does that kind of fit
I
in?
guess insofar as if we restrict it and we say that these people are literally restricted to only participating in these closed systems, and there isn't like a possibility that there might be a misinterpretation of rule. Like if we steel man as much as we can, the hypothetical, then at that point I'd say, there's probably no difference. But realistically, to back up, obviously, I think the problem is that there are going to be so many situations that fall like kind of in this gray area that you'd probably want to be with somebody that is like not a genuine like sadist, or not somebody that's just abusive, right? You'd probably want to be with somebody that has like a deeper moral drive than someone who just happened into a community that gives them an excuse to hurt people, but they like it, is what I would say, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, this is the mediator stuff, right? Or
I think it feels like I'm kind of like, it feels like I'm kind of weaseling around your question a little bit. Insofar as like so to go back to the very beginning, the only thing I care about, or the biggest thing I care about, is predictability of future actions. But if we're restricting this and we're only talking about actions insofar as they've already occurred, then I would say that the internal drive is not that relevant, I guess, because other people don't care much about the well, I guess unless they choose to care about the internal drive, but they don't know about the internal drive. They could lie about it, right? So like other people aren't going to care as long as you're engaging in all the rules or whatever. It wouldn't make a difference. I'm only looking, I guess, at like predictability of future actions. But insofar as like a particular set of actions already happened, I don't think it matters much. Okay, sorry.
Is that morally neutral then for you, the predictability of that? So you wouldn't be like, this person's a worse person because of that. You'd just be like, they're potentially more likely to do something that could be violent, for example. I would say as long as you're respecting the autonomy of another person, then no, I think it's fine. I think that in that case would be morally neutral. I think it comes down to because you're acting on another agent, basically. So, for instance, I'm trying to figure out when you're talking about that all you care about is predictability. I mean, in terms of what? In terms of
okay, I understand. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of this more. I'm looking at this from like a fucking like a normative ethics point of view, rather than just like honing in on like the individual actors. For the individual actors, as long as they're following the set of rules and they're getting the consent from the other person, I don't know if I care about why they're doing a particular thing. So, like, if you do cannibalism, but the other person's like, yeah, you can eat my body once I'm dead, like, fine, that's chill. But if you just go and you cannibalize people that don't want to be eaten, that's probably not chill, right? But as long as you're long as you're working with that set of rules that the other person has agreed with, then I would say it's morally neutral, or it's okay. Yeah.
And even in the case where you, for example, you as an outside to this thing, so they have their whole thing and it's a cannibalism thing apparently, and we're stepping back for a minute and we're like, okay, that guy's a cannibal, and that's just a neutral kind of statement? That's just descriptive. It's just he's a cannibal. We don't worry about it. Yeah. Or is it different because it's such a bizarre kind of, or different or out there or non-normative, whatever you want to call it?
Oh, nah, we're way away from moral dumbfounding on this stream. Okay, we don't do any of that anymore. No, just because something is bizarre, I wouldn't judge it. Yeah, no. As long as I would say that the important analysis there is the relationship that occurs between the two people. As long as both parties are consenting, then it's probably fine.
Yeah, I've heard this argument extended to like pedophilia, for example, that this is not something that anyone would probably. This is not something that someone would consciously choose to have as a kind of affliction on them, right? Like if you woke up and you like next day you woke up and you liked fucking children as a sexual preference, it'd be fucked up. Like, that would suck for your life. Your life would get measurably worse in so many ways. So where is the, you can judge the morality of them acting on that. Yeah, exactly. So like judge them negatively as a person, it feels much less reasonable to do that because fuck, that sucks.
Yeah, you wouldn't judge the drive unless you want to virtue signal on Twitter. You wouldn't judge the drive. You would judge the actions, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of.
Oh, so like we shouldn't. Okay, because I get clipped the fuck out all the fucking time or whatever. Actually, I don't even want to give this hypothetical. Never mind.
Sorry, I don't have these
Well,
problems.
because I'm gonna say, fuck it. Okay, hold on, Clip Father. Because I'm gonna say like a really rough question. If you get somebody to agree with what you just got me to agree to, right? Because I think I would agree that there's not, as long as people are following the rules at the end of the day, is if you were to take a pedophile and you were to have them fuck women that look underage but are of age, would that be a morally bad action if the pedophile was pretending they were children? That would be a.
Wouldn't that be actually maybe a morally good? Doesn't that meet drives?
Well, okay, yeah, well, let's not go that far. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it would be a similar question to that. Okay, but that's all the Clip Father. That's all the clip fodder people get for that one. But yeah, it'd be like an interesting also kind of engagement with that question. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how that would work like that. I don't think we want to explore that further. But yeah. I don't know how you build a life around that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This guy only dates like 18-year-olds who. Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Well, some people look younger, but yeah. Or they watch a lot of anime, I guess, because you know what they say about it. No, right. Okay, go ahead. Okay, next thing.
All right. I've kind of got an interesting segue. So I know something else that you've spoken about on stream is drug use of some part, right? Like psychedelics in particular. Okay. I have no experience with psychedelics directly, but I am interested again in it's a deconstructionist utility kind of argument, right? Of the things that I know that impact me in certain ways, right? So like I know that I take caffeine, I'm going to have a certain response to it. I like alcohol, so I know that with maybe a couple beers, I'm more sociable, more willing to, more comfortable having a conversation, for example, right?
Sure.
So these types of things, right? So I use these functionally in my life already. And one of the interesting ones I encountered in the kink community was pain stuff, which was kind of surprising to me. Which was, do you know what a hook pull is?
Nope.
If you Google it, don't Google it on stream.
Okay.
Because it's probably an NSFW. But essentially, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But it's essentially deliberately putting like a hook through flesh in your body and then deliberately antagonizing that, like putting pressure on it, pulling on it, etc.
Oh, okay. I've seen a trap in a Saw like this, so okay, go for it. The guy hooks his, in the movie Saw, a guy puts hooks in his nipples and is dragged up to a ceiling or whatever. Yeah, go. Probably not the same thing.
I think that's a suspension. That's probably kind of the extreme version of that. But yeah, like a hook pull is probably like a lower. I mean, there was some I think there's a suit like Sundance stuff, which is like pulling it out as like a passage to manhood shit. But and there's like modern primitive movement, which is kind of like bringing that into the society a little bit more again. But anyways.
Or have you ever seen the movie? Have you ever seen the movie Last King of Scotland?
No, my wife does almost all of the film stuff in our relationship. So.
Okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead. Next thing.
Yeah, you're certainly no. Bring it on. I might have seen parts of it. I never know quite what she's watching when I come down. So.
They have like a way of killing people or torturing people in that where they hook the nipples and then they suspend them or whatever by the hooked. Yeah.
Okay.
But okay, go.
Well,
next.
that's an interesting way. That might not be such a bad way to go.
Well, if that's your kink, I guess. Yeah.
Second.
If that's your kink, I guess it would be good. But otherwise, yeah.
Well, that's definitely not my kink.
Okay, yeah.
But I did try it. Well, as part of I went to this particular conference a couple years and we did data collection there, and we did data collection repeatedly at this event called the Dance of Souls, which is essentially that. It's a hook pull event, and I did eventually try it because I'm like, fuck, these are people who I've gotten to know a little bit.
Wait, you tried like the whole suspension
actors.
Thing or just the hook pull a little bit?
I didn't do suspensions. Suspensions were really fucking scary for me.
Okay,
that's like a whole next level of like that. So maybe you work up to that, but suspensions aren't really where I want to go with that. So no, I did hooks in the chest and then pulled against essentially hooks attached to like fishing wire and the fishing wire against like a post, and you pull on them kind of deal and you build it up. And the body's response to fucking pain like that was kind of weird, right? Like it was definitely a physical body high from that. And my point is kind of along the lines of, all right, so we have these other substances we use. I use alcohol. I use caffeine. And this one as an option on the table is kind of interesting to me. So it was useful for me in a couple things, right? Like it was a high experience, but it was also a learning experience. Again, giving myself more information about me going forward. Yeah. I'm kind of curious how that relates to like a psychedelic experience. Like that was something for you that opened a box, right? A little bit.
Sure.
That's my understanding of kind of your like take on that. Was it like it made you think of connections and think of things differently than you did before?
Yeah, for sure.
These ones are generally pretty small for me, right? Like I have an alcohol, I'm drinking something, right? Like I think of things a little bit differently. It has a fairly known effect for me over time for this. What's the kind of known effect of psychedelics for you? Like what is it doing for you? Like how would you describe that?
What is it doing for me? Like in terms of like, what do I feel like I've gained from the experience, or what would I do?
So like, is it something you want to do again, or like you've had the experience once, you don't want to do it again?
No, I mean, I just did LSD, I think a couple weeks ago, like a cabin in the fucking mountains with my fiance, which was fun. I guess man, it's really hard to put it into words, I guess. It's kind of like, To explain the difficulty in answering this, it's kind of like you're asking me that like you're somebody that can see black and white, and you're kind of asking me like, what do you think you gain from being able to see colors, like in a rainbow? Like, what's it like to see blue and purple? It's really hard to explain.
I think
yeah,
that sounds like an answerable question to me in the sense of, because I don't need you to describe blue and purple to me. I want to know why you've now done that. You've presumably had your thing, seen blue and purple, and now you're like, well, I'd like to see blue and purple again. Why? What is it about that?
Yeah, I guess it's just like for the drug thing, especially with psychedelics, the idea of altering something that was kind of taken for granted is just very fascinating to me. Like our conscious experience is kind of like, I don't want to say a trap, but it's like, it's everything we know, right? It surrounds us, and it is the conduit through which we experience things and which we make decisions. And all of this is kind of like, it's like a big like subsystem that we just kind of take for granted because
right.
Why? Because
everything you ever experience is entirely subjective. Because
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And messing that up a little bit, or a lot of it, depending on how many drugs you take, like getting in between that experience is just a wholly unique experience that is just unmatchable in any other way in your life. Like the ability to disrupt that and to kind of see what it looks like when you start to deconstruct that is just so fascinating to me. It's just really, really, really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds really like I have a couple other examples of that, right? Probably not to the psychedelic levels or the hook pull levels, but like you know what Beat Saber is? It's a VR game. Okay, yeah, right. So Beat Saber really highlighted something that I thought was interesting for me, anyways, which is that the idea of, at least for me, and certainly especially it's not even growing up, just certainly experiencing my life. I feel like my ego is me to some degree, right? So I feel like, all right, I'm doing this, I'm making these decisions, I want to do this. And it almost always feels like if I apply focus to something, I'll be better at something, right?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna buckle down, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna work harder at this, I'm gonna put my time and effort, and I'm really gonna pay attention to this, whatever it happens to be, right? And Beat Saber was the opposite for me, right? It was like, if I focused on what the fuck I was doing, I got worse at this. And this is choking, right? This is essentially using different systems of your brain rather than kind of your conscious level processing, because the conscious level processing is super fucking slow. So to do these things as it gotten harder difficulties, you sped this up and got it harder and got it faster, or whatever else. I need to use different systems to do well at it. If I focused on it and tried to be there, like conscious in the moment for that, I did fucking shitty at it. And for me, it was a really nice highlighting of those different systems going in for that. So like, when you talk about like that perspective taking of like stepping back and realizing you hadn't seen yourself in this way before, that was like a really concrete, like non-substance induced moment for me of that. Was seeing that kind of be highlighted so clearly there. Like if I just fucking step back and relax and let it happen kind of deal, then I'm doing much better at this silly game with these tasks because I need that consciousness out of there.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that we especially, well, I would imagine maybe I'm tricking myself a little. Like I think that the smarter you are too, I think you're really good at tricking yourself into thinking that you have a greater degree of control over your body than you actually do. And when it's funny because I actually have firsthand experience with this a little bit, and maybe I should have been a little bit smarter about understanding like, well, maybe you can mess with your mind with drugs a lot. When I was in school, for instance, something that was really weird to me, I used to stay awake playing games so much growing up, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Like I was a fucking gameaholic, okay, all the time.
It's strange that you become a streamer, Destiny.
Yeah, I know. Something that I noticed when I was in school, I think that your body gets tired, or your brain will start to get tired before you actually can even feel it. You'll start to get tired and you won't even know it. And the way that I learned this was because I went to school for music. I realized that if I didn't get enough sleep the prior day, or if it was starting to get late in the day, for music, you can very rigidly define where you're at technically. Like I can play this scale at 140 beats per minute with 16th notes. I know exactly how fast I can play any given scale because you practice these all the time. And I would notice that it's 9:30. I don't feel very tired, but I'm making mistakes here that I know I shouldn't be making. I know I can play faster than this. This is like really weird. And I started to learn. I figured that out halfway through college. Like, wait a second, if I'm starting to get tired, because I noticed I always like start to feel tired like 30 minutes or an hour later. I think I'm actually getting tired, but I just don't realize it yet. And I think there are a lot of, something else that drugs, that's one example. Another thing that drugs help me to do is I am a very stable person mentally for my entire life. It is very, very hard to rock me in a direction that might make me feel like depressed or sad or like upset for more than like a couple hours. Like I'm generally like, I have a very base level, high like response. I'm very happy most of the time, very driven to do everything. I wake up every morning, I feel great. something that I realized after taking drugs was to pay more attention to my mood, because there are times when my mood is pretty bad and it takes me a long time to realize it. I notice this a lot too, and I have a 9-year-old son, and I can see it clearly with him, right? Because kids are—
I was going to say, like, it comes up in relationships so much for me, that feeling.
Yeah.
That you're
And
describing right there.
kids are so stupid. Like, I'll watch my kid, like, he's hungry and he's being a piece of shit, and he doesn't realize it. I'm like, Nathan, you need to either take a nap or you need to eat because your mood is fucked. He's like, no, I'm not mad. It's like, dude, you got it. You're out of control. But I notice that I do the same thing, because there are times where I'll eat like a meal, and after eating, I'll be like, whew, I feel so much better. Wait, I think I've been in a horrible mood for the past like 5 hours and I haven't realized it. And I still
and isn't
do
it
that.
fucked up? There's no like other feedback system for that.
Yeah.
You have to train yourself to notice that. And I agree 100%. Like, this is for my
you're
wife and I, as
trapped
part
in
of the
it.
relationship. It's like not trying to make decisions when you're in the fucking heat of the moment and stepping
Yeah.
back from it. And the benefit of that is you get to see, wait, an hour ago I was thinking like that. That's some fucked up thinking. Where the fuck was I an hour ago? You know, like, but that sometimes it's heat of the moment, but sometimes it's also, as you said, like food or something else. So yeah, I find those super, super interesting.
A question that I have for you, and this is a huge problem that I have in every single fucking relationship in my life, okay? If I am set off because of a particular situation, I cannot have a good conversation about it for like, you have to give me like 6 hours. I can't do it. And I'll tell people, I was like, listen, talk to me tomorrow. I don't want to talk about this right now. Like, just come back in 6 hours. Every single girl I have dated has to resolve it right now, or they feel worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And that has been one of the most difficult, like, conflict resolution things I've ever dealt with in my entire fucking life, where it's like, please leave me the fuck alone for 6 hours, and I can give you such a great conversation about this. Yeah. Do you have experience with stuff like this, or?
My immediate thought that came to mind was, I'm like, I can't think that one exactly, because I agree. I'll slow down for this. I'm often the one looking to resolve it in that moment, and I'm often really bad at it at the moment. But I was thinking, like, at least with the girl you live with, you know, when she's there, you could just do it. You literally write it on a board on your fucking fridge and be like, all right, we know how I get like this. I'm going to be really shit at this right now. 6 hours, write the fucking time down. Be like, anytime after this, we're good to discuss that. And then what you do, what actually makes that work is the outcome, right? So for my partner and I, like, when I can be a less shitty individual after a little bit of cool down time and have this conversation and we get what we want out of it, that's inevitably better than the outcome I would have got from that, right? So yeah, you got to sell it up front a little bit, but
I try to, but it's still, yeah. Usually the other person says, okay, listen, we resolved this last time. Please just think about this. Please just talk to me, please. I was like, oh my God, fuck. So yeah. And you got usually either in one way, sometimes I will find the strength from God to buckle down on myself and have it go. But the other half of the time is usually I just like start saying like, you're being a fucking moron about this. Like, this is so stupid. Like, I don't know why. And then it just is really negative. And then eventually like 12 hours later, I'll feel great. And that's also like the shitty part is that I'll wake up from any problem and I'll feel great. It's like, oh, what's up? I love you. Like, blah, blah, blah. And the other person will be like, I fucking hate you. Like, I've been miserable for the past 12 hours. So it's like, oh, well, shit, dude. Like, I'm over that. Like, oh yeah, I guess I fucked up. Like, I was being down. Like, it's cool. Like, let's move on or whatever. And like, yeah, that mismatch has always fucking driven me crazy in relationships. I don't know why. Fuck.
Yeah. I think you have to get some buy-in for that. Why is it then that? So I mean, the one part you said that was interesting about it is the same issue arises again, and it triggers just as much. Why? Like, what about that? Like, I don't know if you can like give an example of an issue that might be that. But
I have a really difficult time empathizing with other people's emotions. I have to think about it a lot, because usually anytime an issue comes up, I try to think about it like, okay, like if we just think of like this or this or this, like, this doesn't make sense, okay? Like, you're so fucking stupid. How could you possibly think this? I can use a real life example that I fight with over my fiance a lot, right? So we do open relationships, okay? I think that I'm a lot more independent than men that she's been with in the past. So one issue that we run into sometimes is she has the feeling that she's more replaceable to me than I am to her. So sometimes she feels a little bit uneasy about me spending like extended lengths of time with other women. And like, if I'm not careful, if we get into an argument about this, like the instant go to in my mind is like, I'm literally fucking engaged to you. Like, I've spent so much time and money like trying to make this relationship work in terms of like, because we've had to go through a lot of like immigration process or whatever. Like, I've traveled so far. Like, logically, if you stack all the pieces up, like you must be a fucking brainlet to actually assume that I don't love you or that I wouldn't stay with you. It's so fucking stupid. Like, you're so irrational. And that's usually what I want to say. And if I'm pushed, if we get into a fight, that's what's going to come out, right? But if I like,
yeah,
if
but it's interesting because there's immediately like not to psychoanalyze you. And again, like I guess I didn't clarify this when I said this. I'm a research psychologist.
Yeah, for sure.
Training. I had no interest in clinical psychology. I do not want to take on other people's, and I don't have any training for that. So take this with, all that advice for that. But at least again, for thinking about my relationship with my wife, the two aspects of that are one, not only catching that I'm pissed off and stepping back, but also understanding what things she finds worrisome or hurtful and not pushing those buttons in the heat of the moment.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So like there's the one there. And then the other one is some of this might be your partner's work a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Which
for sure.
Is, like if this is a trigger issue for her and you do your best to step around that and this has been discussed and it's still a trigger issue for her, that suggests some work on her part.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. But regardless of who has to work on it, if I like take several hours and then I step back, like I can approach that conversation with like, okay, listen, like I totally understand that, when I do these particular actions, it sends a signal to you. Like I'll try to do better at improving the way I communicate and then blah, blah, blah. Like I can have the conversation in a much more positive manner. But if I get caught in the heat of the moment and then I get emotional, then I'm usually just like, I switch to like, okay, well, these are the reasons why you're clearly wrong. Boom, 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 boom. And then the other person ends up feeling like they're being like debated in a relationship, right? Or like it's a negative feeling when somebody's arguing about you. When somebody is arguing with you about your feelings, it's not a positive experience for anybody.
My wife dings me with that sometimes. Like she tells me, you're telling me what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And like, I'm pretty happy with confrontation. I'm pretty vocal and I tend to be fun. I don't mind debating. So like sometimes like when we come into like a conversation, this can be a problem because it's not how she was raised. It's not how she interacts with that. So if I don't catch myself, I can end up being a real fucking asshole in those moments.
Yeah, the exact same. Yeah. I'm not very proud of this, but an issue came up with me, my kid, and my kid's mom, and my mom were all in our house, and I got my child has unbelievable ADHD. Holy shit. Have you heard stories or seen kids that like fidget around in classrooms all day or they can't hold like a pencil still or like whatever? Like,
yeah.
These might be what people think about when it comes to ADHD. Okay, my kid was like fucking rolling on the fucking floor if he had to sit still for more than 20 minutes. Like it got to the point to where between every class he had to crawl through resistance tunnels to like shed off like excess energy. Like, oh my God, it was unbelievable. Wow. Yeah, and he was really smart, but like it was fucking his ability up in school so much. And I remember that we went to a child psychologist. We got a prescription for Vyvanse or whatever. We were going to try to like ease him into this to help like mediate his behavior for school and everything. And out of nowhere, when I was over at the house one day, my kid's mom brought up that she wasn't going to be giving him the medication because she didn't believe in it. And then my mom was there and she agreed with my kid's mom and I lost it. I was like, you were the worst fucking mother in the world. Like when he fucking kills himself when he's 14 because he has no fucking friends because they all make fun of him for shit he does in school, that's going to be on you. Like I completely lost it. And it was a super unproductive conversation. Nobody was convinced. She didn't feel any differently about it afterwards. But like after I took like a fucking 12-hour break and I came back and I was like, hey, listen, we should have a conversation about how to be like the best role models we can in our kids' life, blah, blah, blah. Like that the conversation, like re-engaging it afterwards after taking some time to think about it was much more positive. But yeah, my immediate reaction when people disagree with stuff that I feel like very, very strongly about is usually really negative. And it's not productive, more importantly. It doesn't get anything I want or what the other person wants achieved. Yeah.
Yeah, but to tie it back in a little bit, at least for me, like these things, it may be the only benefit that I've found of aging yet. Like I'm 36 now, and like the only thing that I really, really like about getting maybe resources, but besides that is probably that I have better self-knowledge. And the better self-knowledge lets me reach the things I actually want to reach more reliably, which is, at least to me, like the only real benefit of that. And also something I find really fucking important. So it's like, I like those moments where something knocks you out of your normal functioning and lets you reevaluate it from a different perspective, and then you get something useful out of it. That to me is just extremely interesting in life and something I want more of.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard I think I heard you talk a little bit about I can't remember, it must have been mushrooms, whatever I can never remember the actual ingredient for that, psilocybin, something like that.
Psilocybin, yeah.
What's the psilocybin? Thank you. Yeah, that's the one. You were talking a little bit ago about like seeing like different colors and like using that as an analogy. Like, was it worth the experience? I think I heard you say about this that you had some like emotional downs after this at one point, right? Like
yeah, I had some really weird bouts with different types of things. The two things that I because when I did a bunch of reading afterwards, try to line it up, the experience, the closest things I could find were like major depressive disorder and general anxiety disorder were the closest experiences I feel like I had. Now, this is anecdotal, but like thankfully these were very brief experiences to me. So I feel like I gained a lot of insight insofar as like what is it like to live in these states, which has helped me be more empathetic towards those people or describe those emotions to people that don't otherwise have them. So I would say that was helpful there. Anytime I can gain more perspective on things, I usually consider that to be a positive thing. So insofar
That's
as
exactly what I was going to ask. I was going to say, like, assuming that there weren't long-term like negative complications in your life, even though it was a shitty experience, it sounds like from that, I think from my perspective, if I had had that, I would be like, that's really interesting. Like it would be another perspective to which to view my understanding of myself. So
exactly. Yeah. And I like those, and I hate this because I consider myself to be a pretty smart person, but I still think I learn best through experience. Like, I think I've read like, I think the quote is something like smart men learn through experience, but really smart men learn through other people's experience or whatever. And I consider myself a really smart man, but there are some things that I just like totally miss me. And then when I have like a certain experience, I'm like, oh my God, this is just, I'm glad I have the experience to draw from now. And then sometimes I'll see other people talk about things and then I notice and I cringe too. And I try to be so careful when I talk about things I don't have experience with, because when I see people talk about things that I've had firsthand experience with, and it's obvious that they don't have firsthand experience with it, I'm like, oh my God, this guy is so wrong in ways he doesn't even realize. And anybody that knows how fucking wrong this person is. Holy yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that highlights a point, at least of how I approach life, is I think it's iterative, right? Like, you rebuild and you go and you reevaluate it at some point. Something causes that, maybe another perspective or maybe a problem in your life or an argument with your significant other or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, all right, well, I gotta build the next layer, and I gotta build the next layer better than the previous layer,
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't ready 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 10 years ago to have heard it that way. And even if I had told myself the perfect knowledge of what I needed to do in that scenario, it wouldn't have mattered.
Okay, I hate that you just said that. Something that I complain about so much on stream.
Tell me.
If I had a time machine and I could go back 15 years and I knew it, I was 16-year-old Stephen Amell and 32-year-old Stephen Amell came back from the future and was like, listen, dude, I'm about to tell you shit that's going to put you so far ahead of where you're going to be, okay? Listen up. 16-year-old me would think, this motherfucker's a sellout. He doesn't know shit. I don't even care if he's me from the future. I know that he's fucking wrong. Fuck this guy. This guy doesn't know what's up. I have it all figured out. Even if I knew it was me from the future, I wouldn't fucking believe me coming back. And knowing that...
So why do you hate that I said that? Because I just said that.
I hate that it's true. It's so frustrating.
Oh, I got you.
It's
I'm like,
horrible.
I don't disagree there.
It's a horrible feeling because it's so true. Like, no matter what the fuck I would say to myself at 15 or 16, I would never fucking listen. Zero chance. Like, I would have to put myself through the experiences to actually gain that firsthand knowledge. And then I'd be like, oh, yeah, you know what? Sure, 100%.
Yeah, and without being a dick too, I mean, if part of the intent of your stream is essentially to, by having these experiences, discussing these things, is to reach an audience, you run the same issue. But half the audience will interpret this in some way that's like maybe related to what you want, and some won't interpret it at all, and some will push back super hard on it, and maybe you move people towards it, but you can't like skip, you might get A to D, but you're trying to go A to F or something, right? You can't skip the midpoints always, or the points in between. So definitely extremely frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
But I agree. Like, even if it was me, like, even if it was fucking time travel and me, I'd be like, nah, alternate future.
Yeah, he must have taken a wrong step somewhere. I'm not going to fuck up like that guy did. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be in a better shape for sure. I had a kind of thought, I think I watched part of that consent conversation you had. How the fuck by the way, do you do like a 16-person like group call? That looks atrocious.
I don't. Prime Case just does it that way. I don't know why he does it, but...
God, like, you can't get any depth of like...
Yeah, there is.
Don't have the time.
I don't know why. I'm not sure, but yeah. Usually I do the smaller panel stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. But there was one guy in there, and he was I don't know his stream. I don't know who he was, but he was talking about consent. And he was talking about essentially, he's like, I read body language. I read body language perfectly, and like he's like, and he kept justifying. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, the universal something, or whatever his name. Yeah.
I thought maybe another way to kind of think about these things might be looking at outcomes too, right? Which is the cost of erring on the side of caution there is pretty low. of like asking for additional, like checking in repeatedly for consent and that people are enjoying themselves and that this is what they want to do. And the cost of not checking in at all is extremely high.
Sure.
So when you make an error assessment, like whenever you're doing this, right? Whenever you're like, we hear talk about p-values. P-values are essentially a agreed upon amount of error that you're willing to tolerate at that. And those p-values change, right? Like if you're doing a medical study and you know the downside of this is someone might die, you're going to change that evaluation than you might in another kind of statistic analysis, right? There's a cost associated with choosing any particular value at which you ascertain this. And I felt like he kind of just really missed it. And not that we have to harp on it for long, but like talking about the consent stuff, it's like the cost of assessing that further is so low compared to the harm that potentially comes out of it by not doing that, that it's almost an argument for that alone.
I agree with you, but that is like a very is a pathos way of looking at things. Logically, it's true, but the problem is the implication there is that you're otherwise implying that it's possible that I did things in the past that some people would consider like rape or sexual assault or like violating someone's boundaries. And that's like, I think that because we essentialize so much, the idea that you did something that was bad at one point makes you a bad person. I think that people are really unwilling to engage with that as an argument. I agree with you logically. Like if I was just having like in a vacuum, or if it was a one-on-one conversation, I could address it more. But like, because all the other person is going to hear is, don't you think you should err on the safe side so you don't accidentally rape someone like you already have? Right. I think that's what the person is going to hear in the moment. So they're like, well, no, of course not. What do you mean I don't need to do this? Because for them to admit that it would be a good idea would be to admit that perhaps they've made a grave error in the past, you know?
Yeah, although sometimes even poking people a little bit, like they might not in the moment be able to process that or figure that out. And no judgment of any way that I don't know what the fuck I would have said there. I wasn't saying I could do it better or anything like that. Just like in the sense of engaging with the idea of this, right? Like in some sense, like even that, like I can think back in my life using my own examples here for this, right? Where parts of my behavior in the past have been like, that was like in retrospect, that kind of was shitty. Like I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So when I change how, you know, the next iteration, again, it's iterative, right? Like I make mistakes. I know I make fucking mistakes. I'm finite. I'm human. I'm okay with making mistakes as long as I try to minimize them and I actually learn from that, right? So like,
I don't know if a lot of people feel that way. I wish that was the case, but I feel like a lot of people have a really hard time. I have a big hard time like admitting prior mistakes like that because anytime we accept anything bad about ourselves, like unless you're really far removed from it, and then I think that we're in like a public area where we tend to like destroy people for making past mistakes as well. Which is really shitty. I don't know how much of that podcast you listen to, but like I would say that in my streaming career in the past, like totally publicly, like I completely and totally like sexually assaulted a girl on stream before for like fucking 5 minutes or whatever. I got super fucking drunk and was like grabbing her fucking breast the entire time. And at the time I figured like, oh, well, you know, we're going to fuck anyway. Like it doesn't matter. Like she's chill or whatever. Like I'm drunk. It doesn't matter. Like at the time I'm thinking like, you know, oh, it's not a big deal. But like looking back, I'm like, okay, wait, this is like really reprehensible behavior. And I even said as much on that podcast where I said that. It's like, yeah, this is really bad. And me reflecting on that in that moment, the next day on that same panel, somebody that was with me on that panel the prior night was like, oh, I don't like Destiny. He's a raper. He's a sexual assaulter. They said it the next day. And I was like,
see, that's so fucked up.
Yeah, I'm like,
That's so
damn,
fucked up.
dude.
The
Like,
judgment of that is that,
yeah, holy fuck. Like, how do you expect people to ever come over to your side? What the fuck? Like, yeah.
And maybe it's just maybe this is logic at not the level of emotion here, but on some level, like I don't understand if the first time you make a mistake, you're fucked. How do you ever grow?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you ever change and be better than that, right? Like, and then the second like kind of premise that comes along with that is then who the fuck do you know who's perfect? You know, so if you're gonna like blow that out a little bit, well, everyone makes mistakes, and if no one's ever forgiven, how is anyone ever acceptable from this? And like maybe you can say I don't know. So yeah, I think it's a pretty fucked up ethos. That idea that like you can't make a mistake and apologize for it and somehow move past it. Somehow.
Yeah, that's really annoying. Yeah.
Or at least pay for it and then move past it, kind of deal. So,
the lack of redemption is a big problem with. I don't want to get in a huge argument about cancel culture because we're probably on the same side of it, I imagine. But like that lack of redemption is like a really big problem, I think, where people have like it seems like my question when I think about somebody, if we think about like racism, right? My question is going to be like, is this person racist? And will they do racist things? But it seems like other people's questions are like, have they ever done a racist thing ever in their entire lives? And it's like these two questions are are getting to like very, very, very different things. Because like people say and do a lot of really dumb shit when they're younger, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be like that forever, but we treat them like that. And that kind of thing drives me crazy because I feel like it just pushes people like more and more into like these more radicalized spaces and everything, you know, and that, you know, that bothers the fuck out of
And
me.
I think it causes a bunch of fucking bullshit, right? Like in the sense of, if people don't think they can make a mistake, then they try their damned hardest to hide and pretend like they haven't made a mistake ever, right? Kind of deal. So like it puts these people presenting these personas that are just so fucking full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like imagine you told a person who said to you, you know, like I've been struggling with depression, and you know I couldn't get out of bed, and you know, and I've started seeing a therapist about this, you know, and I've gone to go seek some help, and your judgment of that, like you turn that around, you're like, oh, you have a problem, you have a mistake, you've made a mistake in your life, you've done something fucked up. Oh, there's no redemption for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, like imagine you told that person like it's not even worth going to the therapist for, it's not even worth trying to fix that. Like what? Just such a fucking bad. Anyways, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Too much echo chamber there a little bit, perhaps. So, yeah. Let's see. I kind of got through most of the things I want to talk about. There's something weird when we're talking about perspective taking, like the alternate perspectives granted by sometimes substance, sometimes whatever else, like physicality or something like that. Something popped in my head. But I'm trying to fuck. I can't. It's like just at the tip of my fingers. I can't quite get to. Do you have anything else along that thought so we can kind of get that same vein of thought going again?
I talked about it was interesting that I gathered new perspectives. It was interesting that I could talk more about people with mental illness. I think I have a much better perspective on at least a few. In terms of taking experiences to my real life, I was much more able to, when I'm on drugs, I definitely can feel a vibe that I don't feel in my normal life generally, such that like, I might be doing LSD with a friend and maybe like a few moments of silence passes and I just feel really bad, like something has changed. So like coming out of my drug experiences, I try to be a little bit more aware of like my mood or my quote unquote vibe or whatever, outside of drug experiences, because I realize that those might be like an undercurrent of my current thought that I'm not always conscious of. So it's good to try to bring that into the front of my awareness.
Yeah, no, that actually did trigger the kind of thought I had, which is the perspective taking element of that, which I think is so interesting, right? Like, and maybe some similarity there too. Like sometimes like perspective taking is not always the first thing that comes to mind for me. Like some experiences that my wife just experiences are just so different than how I process and experience those things. And the idea of being able to like chemically enhance my ability to feel that is really interesting to me. Like the idea of being able to like, okay, maybe I don't get a perfect of this, and maybe it's, you know, it's distorted through a fucking high as well, perhaps, but it lets me see something in a way that I wouldn't have seen it otherwise, or connect and use. And again, it's like a tool usage thing for me, right? It's like, okay, well, I better understand her from this, you know, and I can be a better fucking, you know, partner for her by understanding her that, or make our life easier or less likely to trip that shit up because of that perspective taking, which I just feel like is such a useful thing. So yeah,
For sure.
it's one of these things that someday I will get around to that one particularly, but the other ones have been fun.
If you're looking for something to do with your wife, I highly, highly, highly recommend. If you want like a more of kind of a thought-provoking bonding experience, like LSD would probably be good. And then if you want like you just want to like emotionally connect and bond or whatever, MDMA is like an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, my wife's in higher education, so I of course categorically deny any drug allegations. Yeah,
for sure. But those would be the two that I recommend. When she's out of that profession, you guys are old and looking for new experiences.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Do you find where do you find people, I guess, for conversations like this? Do you find that it's easy in kink communities or whatever to have like these types of conversations about I guess like sexuality or whatever without all the heavy-handed like judgments and everything that normally come in?
So my wife and I used to joke about this a little bit in graduate school. So the problem with the kink community is it's like every other community. It's made up of fucking people, right? Yeah. So like you get your ups and your downs from that. So no, it's a subset of people, right? It's like a subset of people who are interested in generally I don't know quite what they call it. A lot of times they call it work or I got a better one for that. The examined life a little bit, right?
Sure.
So it's the idea of people who are interested in reflecting on how they build their lives. They're kind of conscientious of how they're putting it together. So do I find that more so in the kink community? I think there's a little bit of an ease of access for that because the topics of sexuality are easier to bring up, right? So like that's something that's not taboo in that space, right? You can talk about sex, you can talk about deviant sex, you can talk about power exchange, you can talk about alternate ways of structuring things, and this isn't like getting you looked at as like the pervert down the street or something like that, right? So yeah, to a degree, I think that does come up a little bit more easily there.
But it's not like a magical community of people that are like just capable of having like these well thought out, fleshed out, nuanced takes on. Yeah.
No, it's just like anything else. And like you run into a bunch of shitheads in that community too. And you'll run into some people who are just, you run into people who are there for different reasons too. You got some people who are just there to play or play publicly. And you have some people who like want to build a lifestyle out of it. And there's not a judgment in the former half of that. But if you're looking for people who want to reflect on stuff, you got to find people who are interested in reflecting on stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, no super easy answer there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, fuck, that sucks.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's funny. Yeah.
Right.
And I think I'm lucky too. Like, I met my wife in a graduate program looking at, we both focus on intimate relationships. So it's like a perfect screening process in a sense of finding someone else who also wants to discuss and think about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be a lot harder of a process and a lot slower of a journey if I'm doing that without the aid of someone who wants to do that. Right. So.
Yeah, I noticed something that's like really disappointing for, I don't know if you ever do politics online or if you're aware of how political things online. The difference between having a conversation with somebody willing to engage with you versus like having a conversation with somebody trying to beat you in an argument is like so radically different. Oh my God. The type of engage, it's a fully different set of skills that you have to develop to navigate through like a twisting conversation with somebody that's like trying to like get you to say something dumb or trying to trip you up or like making bad faith arguments or not responding to what you're saying versus somebody that's like actually engaging with the merit of what you're saying, even if they disagree.
Yeah, it's exhausting after a while. I feel like, sometimes I often find that pattern of my actual consumption of your media for that sometimes. It's just like after a while I'm just like, I don't want to hear any more of this. Like it's so clear like the point of the discourse is lost here, right? Like any gold, any benefit coming out of it is gone, and now it's just whatever the fuck you're left dealing with there.
Yeah.
I guess protecting you, the integrity of your idea perhaps. But yeah, 100%. Like you find people who want to talk and are I think the kind of components that go into that are a little bit of humbleness, like really helps for me. Like if I get someone telling me how things are, that's like a very big, immediately evokes a lot of pushback from me. Like especially if I had a guy one time tell me he's like the solution to all of life's problems is discipline. And I'm like, well, like sure, that's going to be applicable to a lot of, anyways, you get the idea of that. But so for me, anyways, finding the people to talk about this has been useful to find. It tends to be for me a certain type of person, right?
Yeah.
Humble, confident. That combination goes really well together, where they can both present an idea, be confident in that, have some experience with that, willing to do, but be willing to be challenged on it, so that you can explore that and figure that out. And and those make for very enjoyable conversations.
Yeah, for sure. It's taken me a long time to realize that I can't just simply universalize my experience to every other person. And sometimes I look back at advice I maybe given in the past, and I realize that like, well, different people process things in different ways, and like what works for me probably isn't the best advice to always give to people. One example I can think of that I used to be so hard on was like, I am not a family-oriented person at all. Like, I love my son, my family that I've made, but in terms of like aunts, uncles, parents, siblings, like, like these are like generally cool people. They're not horrible people, but I'm just not like a big family-oriented person. So like anytime people would like bring up like huge issues say with their family, like my default piece of advice, I was like, just cut them out of your life forever. Like, why the fuck would you care? Like, who cares? He's your fucking mom or dad. Like, you don't live with them anymore. Who cares? Like, stop talking to them. This is so simple. Like, this is so fucking stupid. I can't, right? But then like looking back on it and now having had more experience talking to people with close connections, I was like, okay, fuck. I guess maybe this probably isn't as simple as I make it out to be for most people, like because people view their familial connections a lot differently than I do, and it's probably important for me to recognize that rather than to pretend that it's just so easy for everybody to just discard them on a whim,
Yeah, well, the first part of that really resonated with me, which is it's theory of mind, right? Like, how do you start? We're trying to figure someone out. The first thing you essentially do is you look at them and you're like, well, what would I do? How would I behave?
Yeah.
If he's doing this, what does that mean? What's going on internally with them? And you map them almost on you, right?
Yeah.
And like, intimate relationships have been really good at teaching me how fucking bad that is. It's probably better than absolutely nothing, but it's like a barely one level above that.
Yeah, it's
because my wife
so
thinks
stupid.
so fucking differently than I do about these things, that it's like I need a map of her to really understand what the fuck she means. Because if I map me on that, I'm angry all the time at her. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And then you get upset at people because like, well, I would be doing this. I'd be doing this. Like, why the fuck aren't you doing this? Because clearly then logically, the only thing you can conclude is they're making a mistake. They're being stupid. Like it's simple as that.
Yeah.
But
so it just takes some time for that, for sure. I'm kind of dry on what I brought to talk about. I don't know if you got more. I'm happy to go longer or something, but I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's just I don't have many other guided topics for that.
Can chat think of something?
I haven't even looked at my chat. I should look at my chat.
Wait, are
see
you?
how they're doing.
I don't know how personal you are in terms of like your own relationship. Are you in like any kind of like open relationship, or do you have like a traditional relationship, or?
So I run the issue of, again, my wife is in higher education, and I'm not. I'm a small streamer who's talked a lot about my life online.
Okay.
So I run the issue of localization really quick. So
Gotcha.
I'll answer. I'm happy to answer your question in DMs.
Okay. So. All right. Well. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
If you have a question about it, maybe I can entertain the hypothetical.
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm happy to talk about anything that doesn't involve me referencing her one way or the other. So.
Yeah. Okay. Here is a challenging question. How we touched on this briefly earlier when it came to the jealousy thing. How do you think is a healthy way to determine how much change you demand from your partner versus how much change you make for yourself? We can riff off the example that I gave earlier, where sometimes my significant other feels uncomfortable if I'm spending a lot of time with another woman because she feels like she's going to get like replaced. And personally, I don't think that is ever going to happen. And I've tried to assure her as much. And I think that logically, I think it follows that I'm clearly not going to do this because I've never made that type of investment in another person before. How much of this is like, from my perspective, at what point should I be like, it's unreasonable for me to expect the other person to change their mind so much versus I should expect them to make this accommodation and to kind of like grow or change their mind? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I'm thinking about this again. Like, this feels like almost like this is a conversation I've had with people about like opening up a relationship, for example. Like when does a person feel comfortable with that, and what happens if like, and the kind of the answer that I seem to get a lot about this is it's over time, right? It's built on trust. So like you have the ability to. And it's kind of funny because it goes like, if you think of, sorry to put this little caveat in there, which is if you think of like kink relationships maybe as like kind of like an edgy relationship or something, right? Like
sure.
A part of it, like it seems ridiculous almost to like then go back and be like, well, it's time and it's building and it's trust, but this is actually what all relationships essentially boil down to. So how do you do with that? Like, or when can you do with that? Or how much can you expect from that? I think it becomes, well, what is the core issue? Is the core issue an issue of something like the jealousy that they don't want to see you with another person? If that's the answer, it might never change. If the answer is essentially they're worried that this means that someone is going to leave them or is going to otherwise lessen what they have because of that, that may just take time. So especially if there's an express with that, be like, like I'd really like to be in an open relationship at some point, and the pushback then goes, well, I really don't want to do that. And if they can get to specific as the answer of, I'm worried that if you spend time with that person, then you're not going to spend time with me. Well, you build trust for that. You build trust over time with that. You demonstrate that. You check in again. You kind of be like, is this working out? Is this relationship okay? Is this? And I think the idea is essentially that goalpost of their concern moves as you demonstrate trust and reliability along the way. Is at least how I would take a crack at it that way.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I largely agree. I think figuring out the root of the problems is important. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because the advice essentially is in your poly relationship to like go slow, which is such a bizarre it's surface level opposition where there isn't any real opposition once you dive past it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's kind of like you read like some really stupid takes about like open relationships or poly relationships. Like people, like I'll see people say things like, "What? Like, what does she mean she cheated? Like they're in an open relationship. It's impossible to cheat." Like or some like really dumb takes. Like, well, hold on, wait. Just because you're in this type of relationship doesn't mean there's literally no rules or that literally it's impossible to violate another. Like that's a pretty dumb thing.
It's exactly the same stupid question I got as like in like freshman like college stuff. Right when I think it was an English class I got asked, like, well, if you're an atheist, how come you don't just go out and kill people?
Yeah,
right. It's the same.
You must have no
values,
values,
right?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, let's like, when people ask me questions where it's like very clear that like, okay, why do I feel like I know more on both sides of this conversation? Like, have you even stopped for like 2 seconds to just think past the first thing you're asking me? Because this is like an unbelievable question. I feel like you've never engaged with this topic seriously in your life, but for some reason you feel confident enough to grill me on it. Like, yeah, that type of shit is like really, really, really stupid. Something that I've actually, I don't know how much you argue people, I've just very recently started doing this. I've had great success with this. Something that I've very recently started doing is when I'm in an argument and I feel like the other person is saying is giving an impossibly stupid characterization of something I think or believe, I actually stop and also like, hold on, what do you think I would say to that question? And then surprisingly, this actually defied the fuck out of my expectations because I always assume that people are stupid. That's probably personal. I just assume they just don't know because they're being crazy or they're being bad faith. Oftentimes, the person can actually give me a really good example of what it is that I'm thinking, which is interesting because it means
less frustrating though.
Yeah, it's more as a personal example of this, I was arguing with a guy about like Trump and the whole Capitol insurrection stuff or whatever, and this guy was over and over again. I'd stress this point about like, oh well, I think that all of Trump's rhetoric leading up to this, blah 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 blah, and like this guy would keep cornering me. He'd be like screaming. I was like, okay, what did Trump actually say to drive the insurrection? And I finally, at some point, I stopped. I was like, okay, hold on. All right, Rob, what do you think I would say if you were to ask me why I believe that Trump incited that? And he stopped. And he actually responded in a way that was really close to what I thought. He was like, well, okay, like you would probably say that the totality of Trump's rhetoric has actually led people to being radicalized and undermining. I was like, yeah, wait, so can you respond to that? Because that's exactly what I believe. Yeah, and I find that strategy is actually, and I've done it one other time before, and it actually surprised me. It's blown my expectations to the water that people actually typically know, but for some reason in an argument, they just don't actually give like the best position. They just like storm the fuck out of me. I don't know. But yeah, that rhetorical tactic has actually been incredibly effective for me. So yeah, geez.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things, I'm actually kind of curious. Maybe we can talk about this in a second. It's one of the things I enjoy about your stream, among other streams, or among other media sources. I enjoy Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, which I know you hate both of them, so I'm interested in that.
I hate their political takes, or I'm sorry, I don't like Sam Harris' philosophy takes. I hate Jordan Peterson's political takes. I think that a lot of what Jordan Peterson says about like developmental, like self-help psychology and stuff like that, I think his takes are actually usually really good, and I think they explore a lot of places that people are really uncomfortable exploring. I actually really appreciate him for that. I just hate his political takes so much. But sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Gotcha. So maybe I'm strawmanning that position a little bit, but
No,
the point I was making was the long form conversation with good faith actors is like, for me, the most interesting media to engage with, because it's like it answers that question a little bit of like, okay, I didn't grow up with I didn't have a class on relationships, so how the fuck do I learn about this? I can stumble through my own relationship, or I can engage with people if I'm lucky enough to find them who I can communicate with this about, or I might be able to find it in something like a conversation where people are actually attempting to make something useful out of it. And it's so for me that type of media, that type of conversation is really, really interesting to watch, because it scratches that itch in another way that most of these other conversations don't.
For sure. One thing that I really enjoyed about, I guess, drugs and philosophy is I like the idea of taking something that is just kind of like fundamental or unquestionable, and then trying to kind of like take that apart and really look at it. So a question that really triggers the fuck out of a lot of people that I talk to, and we argue about it a little bit, but most people usually end up agreeing, is a really good question for people, I think, is do you think we've progressed as a society in the past 100 years or in the past 500 years? And, ubiquitously, the answer is yes. Now, some people will somewhat naively engage with the question, go, well, look at all the technology we have available. Some people will make a slightly better engagement with it, like, well, look at the technology we have for like medicine and whatever. Like, that's better. Like, we live longer, we're healthier, right? But the funny thing is that like when people answer that question, the perspective is so, I don't know if I want to say Western or what, but like, a different perspective I try to give people just to like think about is like when we measure progress as a society, we're largely looking at technology. How fast and fuel efficient are our cars? Like what's the processor speed of our phones? What can we do? But if you were to say like, what if we looked at progress as how many healthy relationships can we maintain over the course of 1 year, like now compared to 100 years ago? What if we looked at
society?
Yeah. What if we looked at progress like that? Like, have we actually made progress? Because at the end of the day, these are probably the things that are more important in our lives than just how fast our cell phones are. And I noticed that we actually make zero effort to progress as a society like that. I don't know if we actually have a better handle on interpersonal relationships now than we did 500 years ago. I don't know if that's the case because we never talk about it. We don't have classes on it, and we don't really measure it that much, except maybe peripherally in psychology.
Yeah, I guess I would push back a little bit on the idea that we don't know more. Probably because I have fucking 4 years of psychology training.
Oh, sure. Let me be really clear.
Master's level.
When I say we don't know more, I mean like as a society, it's not something we talk about. In the research, we know more.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that is definitely a source of frustration for me. Is why did I have to wait till I was getting my fucking master's to read about this shit, to learn about this stuff? Like, isn't it something that like literally? Well, I don't know, literally, that nearly everybody in society is going to do at some point in some form or another, some form of relationship. And presumably for most people, this is going to be a significant impact on their happiness. So why the fuck isn't it more clear, more transparent? Why the fuck isn't there more light shown on how that actually works?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you could look at it if you want to look at progress technologically compared to that, like certainly slower in that domain.
Are you familiar with like CBT and DBT?
CBT in the community means cock and ball.
Yeah,
culture.
I know. That's why I said DBT after. Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
So I So I have an ex that's a very, very, very close friend of mine, and she struggles with some mental issues. And one of the ways that I try to help her is I try to, I'm somewhat I was like somewhat integrated into like her therapy. So I told her like, hey, like if you have a therapy session, like you can Zoom me in, and then I can try to learn like positive reinforcement techniques for you to help you out in your real life or whatever. Like I can be like a part of that, like kind of helping you maintain your like healthy mind or whatever. And something that was interesting to me is in going over like the different techniques that she has for her CBT, and then when that doesn't work for her DBT, some of those things actually helped me at 32 years of age that I didn't even know about. So one of the biggest things was after my big mushroom trip, the first time I did mushrooms, I did an ungodly amount, and it traumatized me for a while. And usually the way that I tough through mental issues, and it's always worked for me in my life, this might be a little bit toxic masculinity, but usually I just think like, I'm better than this. I know I can overcome this. Like 100%, this shouldn't be a problem, okay? This is stupid, right? I know I can do this. And this has worked for everything, but the drug thing, it didn't. It absolutely was not, it wasn't helping me. And every time I would do a new drug or smoke a little bit of marijuana or whatever, I would like I would get very, 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 very anxious, and I would have like panic attacks. It was fucking me hardcore. And one of the things that I learned in listening to her therapist talk to her about dialectic behavior therapy is the idea that before actually addressing a negative response you have to an emotion, you have to park your ego, and you have to accept that you might have some feeling, and it's okay. It makes sense that you might have like a negative response to that. And in listening to her therapist talking about that, I was like, you know what? I re-examined my relationship with drugs and experience. I was like, you know what? I think it's actually okay that I have like a pretty traumatic response to these types of drugs. Like, you know what? That was actually a pretty fucking crazy experience. And when I processed it like that, I actually overcame those issues. And now I can do like LSD and drugs again, just because I took the time to like recontextualize how I had those thoughts. And that was because of a therapy technique that I learned for another person that didn't even involve me. Yeah, fuck.
Right, isn't it stupid like how like something as small as that could be maybe useful in your life and you never fucking heard about it till then? And like and how many other alternate timelines are there that are very similar to your life where you never actually stumbled into that?
And I just have these problems for the rest of my life because of that one simple thing.
Yeah. But again, that's the perspective taking comes back to me for this, which is like when I can find ways, like for example, the hook pull, for example, or whatever else, where I can get some extra input into about myself that I wouldn't have got elsewhere. It always feels like an opportunity to try, right? You might like never want to do it again. You might find you love it, but it doesn't matter because the end result of that is you have something useful out of that. So at least you can evaluate, at least as an option for something to do. So.
Yeah, experiences are good. Yeah, even if you never do it again, like it's cool to just say that like you had the experience.
Yeah, and I think also nice to be able to at the end of that, and this is something that's come easier to me as I've gotten a little bit older, which is like I've got an ego like everyone else, and like losing or not being the top of something might have triggered me much more than it used to. So like encountering someone who's like way better at something, and you can like absorb that and learn from that without it being a fucking like without being resentful of that has been helpful. Again, like I deal best with the humble people when I'm having conversations like this, because the humble people are often able to tell you about their experience and guide you through some of that thought process without, for me, triggering my ego, which is something I appreciate. It makes conversation easier for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I guess at the end of the day, the goal is like I'm not trying to tell anybody, or I'm not necessarily trying to tell anybody how to live their life or what to do, but like, here's my perspective and my experience. Like maybe there's an experience here that you can kind of like share, I guess, and then hopefully.
And maybe in that scenario, you're potentially that therapist in the sense of you may have exposed someone to an idea they wouldn't have otherwise. And if you can do that in a way where it's, at least not offensive, so it's not immediately shoved down their throat kind of deal, but they can kind of engage with that on their own terms, they might find something useful out of that. And I'm certainly not on this platform to like better every one of my viewers, but I like my viewers in general, and I'm not going to speak for your community. I don't know what your relationship with it, but a part of me is kind of like, shit, this cost me so little to share an experience like that, and it might be useful. And I wish to God some of these experiences I'd come to earlier, right? Like if I had, some of these would have just shortcutted things if I had found them earlier, if I'd been lucky like that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, fuck yeah. If you ever figure out how to distill those experiences down into some pure encapsulated form and to just make somebody understand, it would be so fucking nice. Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, it would. Anyways, man, I've had a really good time chatting with you. Appreciate you having me on for this.
Yeah, if anything else ever comes up, or if there's a topic, or if you heard about anything, you can always poke me, or I'll poke you, or our fans will tell us to poke each other. So.
Yeah, exactly. So cheers, man. Have a good stream.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Hey, chat. Sorry for neglecting you guys. There was someone else in my life for those few moments. I hope you guys understand. I hope it was fun. I had a lot of fun with that, man. So I don't know. I wasn't entirely sure how it was gonna go. I had no reason to expect it wouldn't go well, but I don't know. It's something I haven't talked to Destiny before. It was really fun to talk to him. So it happen more often? Well, I think both he and I have the same issue here, right? Which is find a reason. And that's probably something you guys are better at, honestly, than we are, right? Since there's a number of you guys as viewers who have different perspectives than we do, who engage with these differently, who are going to have ideas. Hey, it would kind of be nice to hear Destiny's thought or Filthy's thought on that, or whatever it is. And I got to be a little careful because I'm a little streamer and I'm okay with being a little streamer mostly. You know, you can always grow kind of deal, but like, I have no interest for like clout chasing kind of deal. I don't want to be that person, but I really enjoy the conversation. I'd be happy to do more conversations of that type. I could find the way to do it.